the humiliation and the awakening. The transport vessel Odyssey descended through the violet atmosphere of Draventis, capital world of the Cosmic Assembly. Ambassador Richard Harrison stood at the observation deck, watching the planet's massive structures come into view. Spires that reached beyond the clouds, cities that sprawled across entire continents, technology that bent reality itself. This was the heart of galactic civilization, and today humanity would finally claim its place here. Richard was 68 years old, with steel-gray hair and eyes that had witnessed both the best and worst of human nature. He had survived the colony wars, negotiated peace treaties with hostile mining corporations, and spent 30 years building bridges between Earth and the stars. Behind him, 47 other humans prepared themselves. They represented every aspect of human achievement. Scientists who had unlocked fusion energy, artists whose works had moved millions, engineers who had built cities on barren moons, and diplomats who had forged alliances across dozens of worlds. The Odyssey landed on a platform the size of a small city. As the doors opened, Richard felt the weight of 3 centuries of human struggle settle on his shoulders. Humanity had reached the stars in 2247, crawling out from Earth with primitive fusion drives and desperate hope. They had built colonies on Mars, established mining operations in the asteroid belt, and eventually pushed beyond the solar system. Every step had been a fight. Every world claimed had cost lives. And through it all, the ancient races had watched with amused detachment. The celestial forum rose before them, a structure that defied physics. Its walls seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, shifting between solid matter and pure energy. Inside, the chamber could hold 1 million beings comfortably. Today it held representatives from 400 civilizations, but only 12 mattered. The 12 ancients, races so old that human civilization was barely a heartbeat in their histories. Richard walked the long pathway to the speaking platform. The chamber fell silent as he approached. Thousands of eyes, in forms ranging from recognizable to utterly alien, watched his every step. He could feel their curiosity, their skepticism, their barely concealed contempt. To most of these beings, humanity was a curiosity at best and annoyance at worst. The 12 ancients sat on elevated platforms arranged in a perfect circle around the chamber's center. The Zinthari overlord occupied the highest position, his crystalline body refracting light into dancing patterns across the walls. The Zinthari had ruled their empire for 80,000 years, had witnessed the birth and death of stars, and remembered when the galaxy was young. Beside him sat the Morphean Collective, beings of liquid consciousness that flowed through vessels of living metal. The crystalline collective existed as pure thought given form through matrices of exotic matter. The void dwellers, creatures that lived in the space between dimensions, manifested as shadows with burning eyes. Richard reached the platform and activated the translation matrix. His voice would be heard simultaneously in 400 languages, interpreted through technology that humanity had barely begun to understand. He began to speak. Honored members of the Cosmic Assembly, I stand before you representing 8 billion human beings spread across 70 star systems. For 300 years, humanity has journeyed among the stars. We have established ourselves as traders, as explorers, as partners in the grand endeavor of galactic civilization. We have contributed to scientific advancement, shared our culture and art, and fought beside assembly forces against common threats like the Ravager swarms and the dark space incursions. He paused, letting his words settle across the vast chamber. We have proven our capability, our determination, and our value. Today, I formally request that humanity be granted full membership in the Cosmic Assembly. Not as probationary members, not as junior partners, but as equals. We ask for a seat among the 12 ancients, recognition of our sovereignty, and a voice in galactic affairs. The silence that followed was absolute. Richard had expected questions, debate, perhaps resistance. What came instead was far worse. The Zinthari overlord began to vibrate, his crystalline form producing a sound that Richard's translator struggled to interpret. Then he recognized it. Laughter. The overlord was laughing. The sound spread through the chamber like a virus. The Morphean Collective rippled with amusement. The crystalline collective pulsed with colors that Richard's cultural briefing identified as mockery. The void dwellers flickered in patterns that meant contempt. The laughter went on for a full minute. Richard stood perfectly still, his face carefully neutral, while 3 centuries of human struggle were dismissed with casual cruelty. When the overlord finally raised one crystalline appendage, the laughter died away, leaving echoes that seemed to mock Richard even in their fading. Human, the overlord said, his voice like breaking glass. Do you comprehend the audacity of your request? Do you understand who stands before you? I understand perfectly, Richard replied, his voice steady. I think you do not. The Overlord leaned forward, his massive form casting prismatic shadows across the platform. The Zinthri civilization predates your species by 80,000 years. We had mastered faster-than-light travel before your ancestors learned to make fire. We have built and destroyed empires that span thousands of worlds. We have seen species rise from primitive mud and fall back into extinction. We have forgotten more knowledge than your kind will ever accumulate. The Morphean collective flowed forward, its liquid form taking on a vaguely humanoid shape. You call yourselves explorers? You have barely left your corner of the galaxy. You call yourselves warriors? We watched you struggle against the Ravager swarms with technology we discarded 10,000 years ago. You call yourselves civilized? Your species still fights among itself over resources we consider worthless. The crystalline collective's voice was like wind through a cave. 300 years, you say? We measure time in epochs. Your entire civilization, from its first stone tool to this moment, occupies less than 1% of our recorded history. You are infants playing with toys you barely understand, demanding to sit at the table with architects of reality itself. A void dweller's shadow fell across Richard, its burning eyes filled with something that might have been pity. Return to your worlds, human. Be grateful we permit you to exist in our galaxy. Continue your trade, your small explorations, your minor achievements. Perhaps in 10,000 years or 50,000 we will reconsider. But today? Today you are simply not worthy of consideration. Other voices joined in, a chorus of dismissal. The Dendrite Communion, plant-based beings who communicated through chemical exchange, released compounds that Richard's translator interpreted as disgust. The Ethereals, energy beings from a dimension humans couldn't perceive, manifested long enough to express their contempt. The architects, silicon-based life forms who had literally redesigned solar systems for aesthetic purposes, rumbled with amusement at humanity's presumption. Richard felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. He had expected resistance. He had prepared arguments, evidence of human achievement, demonstrations of human potential. But this was not resistance. This was not even rejection. This was erasure. They were not saying no to humanity. They were saying that humanity did not matter enough to receive a no. The Zinthri Overlord made a dismissive gesture. This audience is concluded. Guards, escort the humans back to their vessel. And human ambassador, let this be a lesson. Know your place. Accept your limitations. Be grateful for what you have been given, which is far more than your species deserves. Richard looked up at the 12 ancients, at these beings who had just reduced 3 centuries of human sacrifice to a joke. He thought of the colonists who had died establishing the first Mars settlements. He thought of the explorers who had pushed into unknown space, never to return. He thought of the soldiers who had fought the Ravager swarms to protect not just human worlds, but assembly worlds too. He thought of every human who had ever looked up at the stars and dreamed of something greater. You will remember this day, Richard said quietly. Something in his voice made the guards pause. Something made even the ancients turn their attention back to him. Is that a threat? The Overlord asked, his tone dangerous. No, Richard said. It is a promise. You have made a mistake today. You have taken a species that came to you in peace and shown them that peace means nothing. You have taken a species that offered partnership and shown them that partnership is impossible. You have taken a species that respected your achievements and taught them that respect is not reciprocated. He turned and began walking toward the exit. History will record this moment. I promise you that. And when it does, you will wish you had made a different choice. He did not wait for a response. The human delegation followed him in silence. Behind them, the laughter began again, but this time there was an edge to it. Something uncertain. Something that might have been the first seed of doubt. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Richard spent most of it in his quarters, doors sealed, speaking to no one. His staff worried. They had never seen him like this. Richard Harrison, the man who had negotiated impossible treaties, who had faced down hostile alien fleets with nothing but words and determination, sat alone in the darkness and planned. When the Odyssey finally reached Earth, Richard requested an immediate emergency session of the United Human Council. The council chamber in Geneva was built into the side of a mountain, a fortress that had survived 2 world wars and countless smaller conflicts. The leaders of humanity gathered within hours. Presidents, prime ministers, corporate heads, military commanders and colony representatives. 50 people who controlled the fate of 8 billion. Richard stood before them and spoke for 4 hours. He told them everything. Every insult, every laugh, every dismissive word. He described the contempt in the Overlord's voice, the mockery in the collective's colors, the pity in the void dweller's eyes. He painted a picture of humanity's place in the galaxy not with statistics or diplomatic language, but with raw truth. When he finished, the chamber was silent. President Sarah Mitchell, leader of the Earth Federation, was the first to speak. "What do you recommend, Ambassador?" Richard's eyes were cold. "Close our borders. Immediately and completely. No trade with any assembly species. No communication. No acknowledgement that they even exist. Every human colony seals itself. Every human ship returns to human space. We cut every tie, burn every bridge, and disappear from galactic awareness." "That would be economic suicide," said Director Chin of the Mars Industrial Compact. "Our colonies depend on trade with dozens of species. Our technology relies on materials we can only get from assembly sources." "Then we adapt," Richard said flatly. "We innovate. We overcome. It is what humans do best. It is what we have always done. When Earth's resources ran low, we went to the stars. When conventional physics limited us, we developed fusion drives. When the galaxy told us we could not survive, we built 70 colonies and thrived. We will do it again." "And then what?" asked Admiral James Kristoff, commander of the Human Defense Fleet. "We hide in our corner of space feeling sorry for ourselves?" "No." Richard's smile was not pleasant. "We prepare. We build. We develop. And we show these ancient races what happens when you dismiss human potential. They called us infants. They called us unworthy. They laughed at 3 centuries of human achievement." He leaned forward, his hands flat on the table. "I want to give them something they have never experienced in their long, comfortable lives. I want them to know fear." The vote took place that night. It was not unanimous, but it was decisive. 73% in favor. Within 2 weeks, humanity had initiated the Great Withdrawal. Human ships returned from distant ports. Human traders closed their businesses and came home. Human diplomats severed every relationship they had spent decades building. Human colonies that had been open to alien visitors locked their doors. The galaxy barely noticed. The cosmic assembly continued its business without pause. The ancient races moved on to other concerns. Humanity was already forgotten. But deep beneath the surface of Titan, Saturn's largest moon, in a facility that appeared on no map and answered to no government, something was beginning. The facility had been under construction for 50 years, a backup plan that nobody had believed would be necessary. Now it became humanity's future. Dr. Rebecca Stone arrived at Titan Base on a cold morning in October. She was 42 years old, one of the most brilliant quantum physicists humanity had ever produced. She had pioneered dimensional folding theory, developed the mathematics that made modern fusion reactors possible, and written papers that had revolutionized human understanding of spacetime. The message that summoned her had come directly from Ambassador Harrison. "Resign from your position at Oxford Mars. Tell no one where you are going. Prepare to change the galaxy." The elevator took her 3 miles beneath Titan's frozen surface. When the doors opened, Rebecca stepped into a cavern that took her breath away. It was enormous, easily 5 miles across, carved from solid rock and ice. The ceiling disappeared into darkness far above. And filling the space was equipment unlike anything she had ever seen. Massive generators pulsed with barely contained energy. Quantum processors the size of buildings hummed with calculations. Engineers and scientists moved through the space like worker bees in an impossibly complex hive. Richard Harrison waited for her near the entrance. He looked older than he had in the news broadcasts from Dreventus, his face lined with exhaustion and something darker. Something that burned with cold fire. "Dr. Stone," he said. "Thank you for coming." "Ambassador, what is this place?" Rebecca asked. "This is Project Ascension," Richard replied. "This is humanity's answer to the question the Cosmic Assembly asked. This is what happens when you take a species full of potential and show them that potential means nothing." He led her to a viewing platform overlooking the main floor. Below them, engineers were assembling something massive. A framework of exotic matter and quantum processors, pulsing with energy that made Rebecca's skin tingle even from this distance. "The ancient races control the galaxy through 3 things," Richard said. "Ancient technology, vast resources, and strategic positioning. They have had 80,000 years to build their power base, to establish their systems, to make themselves indispensable. They believe their position is unassailable because they believe the rules of reality are fixed." He turned to face Rebecca directly. "We are going to prove them wrong. We are going to build something that makes their ancient technology obsolete. We are going to develop capabilities that render their resources irrelevant. We are going to change the strategic map of the galaxy itself. Rebecca felt a chill run down her spine. How? Richard's cold smile returned. You tell me, Dr. Stone. You pioneered dimensional folding. You proved that spacetime can be manipulated at the quantum level. You showed us that the distance between 2 points is not fixed but flexible. He gestured at the construction below. What if we could fold space not just to move through it but to reorganize it? What if we could take a planet, a moon, even a star, and relocate it instantly to anywhere in the galaxy? Rebecca stared at him. That's impossible. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical. You would need to manipulate gravitational fields on a scale that... She stopped. Her mind was already racing, calculating, theorizing. You would need quantum entanglement on a massive scale. Dimensional anchors that could lock onto spatial coordinates across light years. Processing power that could handle calculations involving every atom in a planetary body. Can it be done? Richard asked. Rebecca looked down at the construction below. She thought about the mockery at Draventis, about the laughter that had dismissed human achievement. She thought about her grandfather, who had been killed by Zinthari raiders when she was 10 years old. The assembly had called it a regrettable incident and moved on. She thought about every human who had ever been told they did not matter. Yes, she said. It can be done. It will take decades. It will require breakthroughs in quantum mechanics, gravitational manipulation, and dimensional physics that we haven't even theorized yet. It will push every boundary of human knowledge. But yes, it can be done. Richard put his hand on her shoulder. Then let's begin. Let's build something that will make the ancient races remember the day they laughed at humanity. The work began in earnest. Scientists from across human space came to Titan Base, each believing they were working on separate projects. Only the core team knew the full scope of Project Ascension. They called the device they were building the Ascension Engine, a machine that would give humanity the power to reshape reality itself. The first 10 years were the hardest. The theoretical work alone was staggering. Rebecca and her team had to essentially reinvent quantum mechanics from the ground up. They had to develop new mathematics to describe dimensional folding on a planetary scale. They had to solve problems that had no precedent, no reference point, no existing framework. People died. Not in dramatic explosions or catastrophic failures, but in quiet ways. Heart attacks from stress. Accidents from exhaustion. Suicides from the weight of impossible problems. Richard kept a list of their names. 347 people in the first 10 years alone. 347 sacrifices on the altar of human determination. But progress came. Slowly at first, then faster as breakthroughs built on each other. Year 15 saw the successful manipulation of a small asteroid, moving it 300 miles in an instant. Year 23 brought the dimensional anchoring system online, capable of locking onto spatial coordinates with perfect accuracy. Year 31 achieved quantum entanglement of matter on a scale never before attempted. Richard aged with the project. His hair went from gray to white. His face became a map of lines and shadows. But his eyes never lost their cold fire. He worked 18-hour days, drove his teams relentlessly, and never allowed anyone to forget why they were here. In his office, he kept a recording of the Draventis humiliation, as it had come to be known. He watched it every morning, listening to the laughter, remembering the contempt, letting it fuel him. The galaxy moved on. Humanity's withdrawal had caused some minor disruptions in trade, but the ancient races adapted quickly. They found other sources for human goods, other partners for minor alliances. Some younger species asked what had happened to the humans, but the ancients dismissed the questions. A minor species having a tantrum. They will return when they realize they need us more than we need them. But humanity did not return. Human space remained sealed. Human colonies grew increasingly self-sufficient. And in the depths of Titan Base, something unprecedented was taking shape. Year 35 saw the first full-scale test. They moved a moon. Not a small one, but Titan's second-largest satellite, a body 300 miles in diameter. The Ascension engine came online, reality folded, and the moon vanished from its orbit around Titan to reappear instantly in a new position 50,000 miles away. The power consumption was enormous, but it worked. It actually worked. Rebecca Stone stood in the control room, watching the telemetry with tears streaming down her face. She was 77 years old now, kept alive and sharp by the best medical technology humanity could develop. "We did it," she whispered. "Richard, we actually did it." But Richard was not satisfied. "We moved a moon in our own system," he said. "That is not enough. We need to be able to move anything, anywhere, instantly." We need range measured in light years, not miles. We need precision down to the meter. And we need to be able to do it repeatedly without burning out the engine. The work continued. 10 more years of refinement, testing, and improvement. The engine grew larger, more powerful, more sophisticated. They developed shielding systems that could protect the transported object from the stresses of dimensional folding. They created navigation systems that could plot courses through folded space with perfect accuracy. They built redundancies upon redundancies, ensuring the engine would work even under the most extreme conditions. Richard Harrison died in year 43 of the project. He was 111 years old, his body finally giving out despite all medical intervention. His last words, spoken to his grandson Jackson Cole, were simple. Finish it. Make them remember. Jackson Cole was 47 years old, a military commander who had spent his entire life preparing for a war that might never come. He had his grandfather's steel gray eyes and his grandmother's fierce determination. He had grown up hearing stories of the Dreventis humiliation, had watched the recording countless times, had dedicated his life to ensuring that humanity would never be dismissed again. He took over as director of Project Ascension 3 days after his grandfather's funeral. His first act was to accelerate the timeline. His second was to begin training teams for active deployment. We are not building this machine to hide it in a museum, he told the senior staff. We are building it to use it. And the time for use is coming soon. The Ascension engine was completed in year 45. It filled the entire cavern beneath Titan, a masterpiece of human engineering and determination. At its heart was a quantum core the size of a small building, capable of manipulating spacetime on scales that would have seemed like magic a century ago. Surrounding it were dimensional anchors, gravitational manipulators, and processing systems that could handle calculations involving every atom in a planet. The engine could move anything up to the size of a large moon instantly across distances of up to 500 light-years. It could do so with precision measured in meters. It could operate continuously for 72 hours before requiring cooling. And most importantly, it could be operated by a crew of just 50 people. Humanity had built something that made ancient technology look primitive. They had created a capability that rendered strategic positioning irrelevant. They had developed a power that could reshape the galaxy. But they had not yet used it. Not against the ancients. Not to prove their point. Jackson waited, patient as his grandfather had taught him to be. The right moment would come. The moment when humanity could demonstrate its new reality to the galaxy in a way that could not be ignored or dismissed. That moment came in year 47. The rise and the reckoning. The Xynthri attack on New Terra came without warning. It was not officially sanctioned by the Cosmic Assembly, merely a border action by an ambitious Xynthri war fleet looking to expand their territory. The colony world of New Terra housed 50,000 human civilians, families who had built lives on a world they had transformed from barren rock to thriving farmland over 3 generations. The Xynthri fleet arrived in orbit and delivered an ultimatum. Evacuate within 24 hours or be destroyed. The evacuation was impossible. 50,000 people could not be moved in 24 hours with the limited transport available. The colonists sent desperate pleas for help, but the nearest human military vessels were 3 weeks away. They appealed to the Cosmic Assembly, invoking ancient treaties about the protection of civilian populations. The Assembly reviewed the case and rendered its judgment in 4 hours. The New Terra situation was classified as a territorial dispute, not an act of aggression. The Xynthri claim to the system was deemed valid based on ancient star charts. The human colonists were advised to negotiate with the Xynthri for more time to evacuate. The Assembly would not intervene in what it considered an internal matter. When the 24 hours expired, the Xynthri war fleet opened fire. Orbital bombardment lasted for 6 hours. When it was over, New Terra was a smoking ruin. The death toll was 47,322. 3,000 survivors remained, scattered in emergency shelters, traumatized and abandoned. The Cosmic Assembly issued a statement of regret. The loss of life was unfortunate, but the colonists had been in violation of territorial boundaries. The Xynthri had acted within their rights. The matter was considered closed. Jackson Cole received the news in his office at Titan Base. He read the casualty reports, the survivor testimonies, the Assembly's dismissive statement. He thought about his grandfather's words. Make them remember. He thought about the recording of the Dreventis humiliation that still played every morning in his quarters. He thought about 47 years of preparation, of sacrifice, of human beings dying to build something unprecedented. He called an emergency meeting of the project's senior leadership. Rebecca Stone was there, now 89 years old and confined to a mobile chair, but her mind still sharp. Admiral Christoph, now retired but still serving as military advisor. Dr. Marcus Webb, the engine's chief engineer. Commander Lisa Park, head of operations. 30 others who had devoted their lives to this moment. The time has come, Jackson said without preamble. New Terra has shown us what we already knew. The ancient races do not see us as people. They see us as things to be managed, controlled, and discarded when convenient. 47,000 human beings are dead, and the galaxy has already moved on. He activated a holographic display showing the Zinthri home system. The Zinthri have 3 primary military installations. Their main fleet base is on Kethris, a moon orbiting their gas giant Zinther Prime. Kethris is defended by weapons platforms that could destroy a fleet, protected by shields that could withstand a supernova. It has been their stronghold for 60,000 years. Jackson's smile was cold and hard. We are going to move it. We are going to take their moon, with all its defenses and all its personnel, and relocate it to the edge of their system. 5 billion miles from where it has orbited for millennia. And we are going to do it in front of the entire galaxy. Rebecca leaned forward. You understand what this means? This is not a demonstration. This is an act of war. No, Jackson said. This is an act of power. War implies violence, death, destruction. We are not going to kill anyone. We are simply going to show the Zinthri and every other ancient race that their strategic positions mean nothing. That their ancient strongholds can be moved at our whim. That the rules they have played by for 80,000 years no longer apply. The Cosmic Assembly will respond, Admiral Christoph warned. They will see this as a threat to galactic order. Good, Jackson replied. Let them respond. Let them gather their fleets, activate their ancient weapons, call emergency sessions. Let them do whatever they want. And then let them realize that none of it matters. We are not fighting by their rules anymore. The planning took 3 weeks. Every detail had to be perfect. The operation had to be executed flawlessly, not just for its immediate impact but for its long-term message. Humanity was not seeking war. Humanity was rewriting the fundamental rules of power in the galaxy. The Ascension engine came online at 0600 Universal Time on November 15, 2347. Exactly 100 years after Ambassador Richard Harrison had stood before the Cosmic Assembly and been dismissed with laughter. The timing was deliberate. Jackson wanted the ancient races to remember that moment, to connect it with what was about to happen. The dimensional anchors locked onto Kethris with perfect precision. The quantum core spun up to full power, drawing energy from Titan's deep thermal vents and massive fusion reactors that had been built for this single purpose. The gravitational manipulators created a bubble around the target moon, isolating it from normal spacetime. In the Zinthri home system, alarms began screaming. Sensors detected massive gravitational anomalies around Kethris. The Zinthri defense fleet scrambled, but they had no idea what they were facing. They had weapons that could crack planets, shields that could deflect star-destroying energy beams. None of it mattered. Reality folded. Kethris, a moon 3,000 miles in diameter, home to the largest military installation in Zinthri space, vanished. One moment it was there, a solid presence in orbit around Zinther Prime, where it had circled for geological epochs. The next moment it was gone. Not destroyed, not transported through conventional space, simply gone. It reappeared 5 billion miles away at the very edge of the star system, in a stable orbit around nothing. The moon was intact. Every building, every person, every system was perfectly preserved. But its position had changed in an instant. The Zinthri fleet converged on the new location, finding their primary military base relocated as if by the hand of some god. Confusion reigned. How was this possible? What weapon could do this? Who could wield such power? And then the broadcast began. Across the entire galaxy, on every frequency used by the Cosmic Assembly, a message appeared. It was simple, direct, and utterly clear. The face on the screen was Jackson Cole, but behind him stood images of Ambassador Richard Harrison, of Dr. Rebecca Stone, of the thousands of humans who had built Project Ascension. People of the galaxy, Jackson said. 100 years ago, humanity came before the Cosmic Assembly in peace. We offered partnership, cooperation, and mutual respect. We were dismissed with laughter. We were called unworthy, inadequate, inferior. We were told to know our place. The image shifted to show Kethris in its new position, orbiting in the darkness at the edge of the Zinthri system. This is humanity's response. We have developed technology that renders your ancient strongholds meaningless. We have created capabilities that make your strategic positions irrelevant. We can move moons, planets, even stars themselves. We can reshape the galaxy according to our will. Jackson's expression hardened. 3 days ago the Zinthri destroyed New Terra. 47,000 human civilians died, and the Cosmic Assembly declared it acceptable. We want to be very clear. This action today is not revenge for New Terra. This is not about vengeance or punishment. This is about establishing a new reality. The moon Kethris has been relocated but not destroyed. Every Zinthri on that base is alive and unharmed. We have demonstrated power without violence, capability without cruelty. But make no mistake, we could have moved Kethris into the sun. We could have scattered it across the galaxy in pieces. We could have done to the Zinthri what they did to New Terra, magnified 1,000 times. The image shifted again, showing the Ascension engine in all its glory. Humanity has spent a century in isolation, not in weakness but in preparation. We have built something unprecedented. We have achieved what the ancient races, in their 80,000 years of civilization, never imagined. And we have done it in 4 generations. Jackson leaned forward, his steel-gray eyes boring through the screen. The Cosmic Assembly meets in 3 days to discuss this action. Humanity will attend that meeting. We will present new terms for galactic order. These will not be requests. These will not be petitions. These will be statements of fact, backed by the capability you have just witnessed. To the ancient races who laughed at us, who dismissed us, who told us to know our place, you were right about one thing. We do know our place now. And our place is not beneath you. The broadcast ended. The galaxy exploded into chaos. Every communication network was overwhelmed with traffic. Emergency sessions were called across hundreds of governments. Military fleets went on high alert, though no one knew what they were preparing for. Scientists scrambled to understand what they had witnessed. Philosophers debated the implications. Religious leaders declared it everything from divine intervention to demonic power. The Cosmic Assembly convened an emergency session within 6 hours. The 12 ancients gathered in the Celestial Forum, their ancient calm shattered by an event that should have been impossible. The Zinthri overlord who had laughed at Richard Harrison 100 years ago still held his position, his crystalline form now crackling with barely controlled fury. This is an act of war, he declared. The humans have attacked Zinthri territory, have violated our sovereignty, have demonstrated hostile capability. We demand immediate assembly action. Economic sanctions, military response, complete isolation of human space. But before the assembly could vote, the doors of the forum opened. Jackson Cole walked in, followed by a delegation of 50 humans. He wore a simple military uniform with no decorations, no symbols of rank. Behind him came scientists, engineers, and diplomats. They walked with confidence, with purpose, with the bearing of people who knew exactly what power they held. Commander Cole, the Zinthri overlord's voice was like breaking ice. You dare to come here after your act of aggression? There was no aggression, Jackson replied calmly. No one was harmed. No property was destroyed. We simply demonstrated a new capability. We moved a moon. If that constitutes aggression in your eyes, then I suggest you reconsider your own actions at New Terra. The Morphean Collective flowed forward. You threaten the entire galactic order. You have developed a weapon that makes all strategic planning meaningless. You must surrender this technology immediately. Jackson smiled. It was his grandfather's smile, cold and hard and utterly uncompromising. No. We will not surrender anything. Instead, we will tell you how things are going to work from now on. He activated a holographic display that filled the center of the forum. It showed the Ascension engine, its capabilities, its range, its precision. Humanity now possesses the ability to relocate any celestial body up to the size of a large planet, anywhere within a 500 light-year radius, with perfect precision. We can do this repeatedly, continuously, and without warning. The display shifted to show strategic maps of the galaxy. Every military base, every resource-rich world, every carefully positioned stronghold that the ancient races have built over millennia can be moved. Your entire strategic paradigm is obsolete. This is madness, the Crystalline Collective's voice rang through the chamber. You could destabilize entire star systems, destroy orbital mechanics, cause catastrophic collisions. You could kill billions. Yes, Jackson agreed. We could. Just as you could have destroyed Earth 80 years ago when the Sithrani threatened to do exactly that unless we surrendered our outer colonies. Just as you could have intervened at New Terra 3 days ago and saved 47,000 lives. Power is not the question. How power is used is the question. He turned slowly, looking at each of the 12 ancients in turn. 100 years ago my grandfather stood where I stand now. He came in peace, offering partnership. You laughed at him. You dismissed human achievement, human potential, human worth. You treated us like children playing with toys, like vermin to be contained. He promised you would remember that day. And you do, don't you? Every one of you remembers the human who dared to ask for equality. You remember because his audacity amused you, because his presumption was entertaining. You remember because you used him as an example of what happens to species who do not know their place. Jackson's voice hardened. Well, we know our place now. Our place is wherever we choose it to be. And today we choose to rewrite the rules of galactic civilization. He gestured, and the holographic display changed to show a document. These are the new terms of engagement. First, humanity will be granted full membership in the Cosmic Assembly with all rights and privileges thereof. Second, humanity will be given a permanent seat among the ancients, making it the 13th. Third, all existing treaties and agreements will be renegotiated to reflect the new balance of power. Impossible, the Void Dweller's shadow fell across Jackson. You cannot dictate terms to species who have ruled this galaxy since before your sun ignited. I am not dictating, Jackson replied. I am stating facts. You can accept these terms and begin adapting to the new reality. Or you can refuse and we will demonstrate our capability again. And again. And again. Until you understand that your age, your achievements, your ancient glory mean nothing against the simple fact of capability. The Zinthari overlord's crystalline body was vibrating with rage. If you use that weapon again, we will consider it an act of war. Every fleet in the galaxy will descend on human space. We will destroy your colonies, burn your worlds, and erase your species from existence. Jackson met his gaze without flinching. You are welcome to try. But before you do, consider this. The Ascension engine is not on Earth. It is not in any location you can attack. And the knowledge to build it is not stored in any database you can destroy. That knowledge exists in the minds of thousands of human scientists, engineers, and technicians spread across 70 systems. You cannot eliminate it without committing genocide on a scale that would make New Terra look like a minor incident. He paused, letting that sink in. More importantly, ask yourselves what happens if you attack us. We would have no choice but to defend ourselves with every means at our disposal. And our means now include the ability to relocate your home worlds. Imagine waking up to find that Zinthar Prime has been moved to the edge of the galaxy, 300 light-years from the nearest star. Imagine your people scattered across space, your civilization disrupted, your millennia of careful planning rendered meaningless in an instant. This is extortion, the Morphean collective hissed. No, Jackson corrected. This is negotiation backed by capability. It is exactly what the ancient races have done for 80,000 years. The only difference is that now humanity has the capability too. The silence that fell over the forum was different from the silence 100 years ago. Then it had been the silence before laughter, before dismissal, before contempt. Now it was the silence of calculation, of fear, of species who had just learned that the galaxy they had ruled for so long was no longer theirs alone. The crystalline collective spoke first. If we accept these terms, what guarantee do we have that humanity will not use this weapon aggressively? What stops you from becoming the very tyrants you accuse us of being? Nothing, Jackson said honestly. Nothing except our own ethics, our own values, our own choice to use power responsibly. The same things that have supposedly restrained the ancient races for millennia, though New Terra suggests those restraints are more flexible than advertised. He gestured to his delegation. But here is what I can offer. Humanity will agree to certain limits on the use of the Ascension engine. We will not relocate inhabited worlds without assembly approval except in cases of immediate self-defense. We will not disrupt star systems in ways that would cause mass casualties. We will submit to inspection and verification protocols, provided the ancient races submit to the same. In return, humanity gains full recognition, equal status, and a voice in galactic affairs. We gain protection under assembly law, not as supplicants but as partners. We gain the right to exist without fear of casual dismissal or convenient massacres. The 12 ancients conferred among themselves in languages and communication methods that human translators struggled to interpret. The discussion went on for an hour while Jackson and his delegation waited patiently. Finally they reached a consensus. The Zinthari overlord spoke, his voice carefully neutral. The Cosmic Assembly will consider these terms. We require time to deliberate, to consult with our governments, to evaluate the implications. You have 1 week, Jackson said. After that, we will consider the negotiations concluded and act accordingly. That is insufficient time for matters of this magnitude, the Morphean collective protested. Jackson's smile returned. 100 years ago, my grandfather was given less than an hour before being dismissed with laughter. I think 1 week is generous. But if you need a reminder of why prompt action is advisable, I can arrange another demonstration. Perhaps relocating a few resource-rich asteroids, or adjusting some orbital mechanics in uninhabited systems. That will not be necessary, the crystalline collective said quickly. 1 week is acceptable. Jackson nodded. Then we will await your decision. But understand this, all of you. Humanity is not asking for permission anymore. We are not requesting acceptance. We are not seeking approval. We are informing you of reality. The galaxy has changed. You can change with it or you can be left behind by it. But you cannot stop it. He turned and walked out of the forum, his delegation following. Behind him, the 12 ancients who had ruled the galaxy for 80,000 years sat in stunned silence, forced to confront a truth they had never imagined. They were no longer the most powerful force in the cosmos. The week that followed was the most turbulent in galactic history. Across 400 civilizations, debates raged. Some species called for immediate military action against humanity. Others urged caution, pointing out that humanity had demonstrated power without violence, capability without cruelty. Still others saw opportunity, thinking that perhaps a shift in galactic power dynamics might benefit those who had been overlooked by the ancients. The ancient races themselves were divided. The Zinthri wanted war, wanted to crush this upstart species before it could threaten them further. The Morpheans urged negotiation, recognizing that military action might provoke exactly the catastrophe they feared. The crystalline collective calculated probabilities and concluded that cooperation was the only logical path. The void dwellers, existing partly outside normal time, had already seen potential futures and knew that resistance was futile. On the 7th day, the Cosmic Assembly reconvened. The Celestial Forum was packed with representatives from across the galaxy, all wanting to witness history. Jackson Cole and his delegation returned, walking the same path Richard Harrison had walked 100 years before. But this time there was no laughter. There was tension, anger, fear, but no mockery. The crystalline collective spoke as the designated voice of the ancients. The Cosmic Assembly has considered humanity's terms. After extensive deliberation, we have reached a decision. The chamber held its breath. The terms are accepted. Humanity will be granted full membership in the Cosmic Assembly, effective immediately. Humanity will be given a permanent seat among the Governing Council, which will henceforth be known as the 13. All existing treaties will be subject to renegotiation to reflect the new balance of power. Jackson felt something release in his chest, a tension he had been carrying for 47 years. The Assembly has made a wise choice. We have made a necessary choice, the crystalline collective corrected. Do not mistake acceptance for approval. We recognize your power, but that does not mean we embrace what you have done. I don't need you to embrace it, Jackson replied. I need you to respect it. I need you to remember that humanity will no longer tolerate being dismissed, ignored, or casually sacrificed. We are here. We matter. And we will defend that truth with every means at our disposal. The Zinthri overlord's voice was bitter. You have won your seat through threat and intimidation. How does that make you different from the tyrants you accuse us of being? Jackson looked at the crystalline being who had laughed at his grandfather. The difference is simple. We came to you first in peace. We asked for recognition. We were willing to earn our place through cooperation and contribution. You refused. You laughed. And then you slaughtered 47,000 of our people and called it acceptable. We did not force this situation. You did. We simply responded to the reality you created. If that makes us like you, then so be it. But at least we know we tried the peaceful path first. The Morphean collective flowed forward. What happens now? You have your seat, your recognition, your power. What will humanity do with it? Jackson considered the question carefully. We will do what we have always done. We will build, we will explore, we will learn. We will contribute to galactic civilization, not as subordinates but as equals. We will defend ourselves when threatened, protect our interests when challenged, and use our power responsibly when possible. He paused. But we will never forget. We will never forget the laughter in this hall. We will never forget New Terra. We will never forget that we had to build a weapon that could move worlds just to be treated with basic respect. Those memories will shape our choices going forward. And if you abuse this power? The Void Dweller asked. If humanity becomes what you fought against? Then we will deserve whatever consequences come, Jackson said simply. But that is a choice for the future. Today we have simply established that humanity has the power to make choices at all. What we do with that power will be judged by our actions, not by your fears. The crystalline collective made a gesture that might have been acceptance or resignation. Then let it be recorded. On this day, the Cosmic Assembly expands to include humanity as the 13th of the governing races. Let this mark a new era in galactic civilization. The formal ceremonies took hours. Treaties were signed, oaths were sworn, protocols were established. But the moment everyone would remember came at the very end, when Jackson Cole stood before the assembled galaxy and spoke the words his grandfather had never gotten to say. On behalf of humanity, I accept this seat. Not with gratitude because we earned this through our own efforts. Not with humility because we have nothing to be humble about. But with determination. We will prove ourselves worthy not of your approval but of our own standards. We will contribute, cooperate, and coexist with all species who treat us with respect. And to those who would test us, who would dismiss us, who would threaten our people or our worlds, remember Kethris. Remember what we can do. Remember that humanity is done asking for permission to exist. The assembly erupted in mixed reactions. Some species applauded, seeing humanity's rise as long overdue. Others sat in angry silence, resenting the shift in power. The ancient races showed nothing, their faces or forms carefully neutral, but Jackson could feel their calculation, their assessment, their grudging acceptance. As he left the forum for the second time, Jackson thought about his grandfather. He thought about Richard Harrison standing in this same place 100 years ago, dismissed with laughter. He thought about every human who had died building the Ascension engine, every sacrifice made, every year spent in preparation. "We did it, grandfather," he whispered. They remembered. Behind him, in the halls of power where ancient races had ruled unchallenged for 80 millennia, a new seat was being prepared. The 13th seat. Humanity's seat. It had taken 3 centuries of struggle, 100 years of preparation, and the development of technology that could reshape worlds. But humanity had finally claimed its place among the stars. Not through supplication. Not through patience. But through demonstrating that power respects only power, and that even the youngest species can teach the oldest a lesson they will never forget. The galaxy had laughed at humanity. Now the galaxy would learn to listen. And in the quiet laboratories of Titan Base, human scientists were already working on the next breakthrough, the next impossibility made real. Because humanity had learned the most important lesson of all. Never accept someone else's definition of what you can achieve. The ancient races had ruled for 80,000 years. Humanity had taken its seat in less than 100. The future belonged not to those who had been powerful the longest, but to those who never stopped pushing the boundaries of what power could be. And humanity, young and hungry and determined, was just getting started.